Welcome back to Let's Code. I'm Chris Biscardi, and today I wanted to introduce you to Cargo Generate. Now, Cargo Generate, or rather, let's start a little bit wider. Many different languages have different ways to scaffold new projects. Often, this comes in the form of a third-party CLI tool that is responsible for picking a templating language, picking a scripting language, and determining how you get whatever you get wherever you need it. In the case of Rust, I think Cargo Generate is probably the most popular option for scaffolding new projects. So if you were going to set up some new framework and you wanted people to be able to easily pick out or start new Rust projects that included your framework, say you're building something like Axum, then you could use Cargo Generate to set up a set of GitHub repos that included templates and scripting and other things that would allow you to effectively git clone and then execute some code and get a full generated project with whatever the name of the project is inside of the Cargo TOML file and things like that. Cargo Generate has made a couple of choices, like these tools tend to do. They use Liquid as a templating language. Liquid is fairly popular. You might be familiar with it if you've ever written templated emails, for example, or I think it's also popular in the Python ecosystem. Rye is something we could go into another day, but Rye is an embedded scripting language that's supposed to be a little bit like JavaScript that you can then embed inside of your Rust application and let people write functions. So it's a way of basically exposing hooks to a user who can then program with them using this Rye scripting language that they can then use inside of their templates. But today is not about Rye. And then Cargo Generate also uses the regex crate. So let's see how this works. In this case, we get a Cargo Generate and we're using a Git repo specifically very directly with a fully qualified URL. This will be a wasm-pack template. So let's see what happens. Now it's unable to load my config file. So there are some settings or global variables that you can set in a cargo generate.toml. I'm going to name this project new YouTube video because I'm not actually going to end up using it. You can see that Cargo Generate actually gives you validation. So new YouTube video is not a valid value for the crate name. So that tells me that I need to actually set a crate name. So maybe it'll let me do it with hyphens, and it will. So we can see that it created a bunch of different files, including an app.var file, as well as a source directory with a lib.rs, some utils, and a tests directory. And then it took all those files from some temporary directory and moved them into the new YouTube video directory. So if we go into that directory, then we can see our entire project templated out. Let me open this in VS Code rather than pulling it through. So in this case, we can see the README came with some HTML in it and stuff like that. And tells us how to use it or whatever. That's not really a Cargo Generate thing. That's just a README template. And we can see that we've got a lib.rs here with some externs because this is, WASM. So our utils.rs sets the panic hook. We've got some tests. So web.rs includes a wasm bindgen test. There's a travis.yaml and an app.var file, neither of which I'll probably end up using. And then we've got the Cargo TOML. The Cargo TOML, interestingly enough, includes the name templated in that we interactively set. And it has my full name here. So Christopher Biscardi, chris@christopherbiscardi.com, which is my name and my email address. This template seems like it might be a little older. So the template edition came with 2018. And then, of course, we've got our dependencies down here. And you can see that wasm bindgen test is now at 0.3.33. So I think the template in the example here might be a little out of date. And if we look at this template, we can see that it is actually from a number of years ago, 2019, I think it is. So maybe they should replace that on the website. But Cargo Generate is still maintained and current. And we can see inside of the cargo.toml that there are these like almost mustache handles if you're familiar with handlebars or mustache or one of those templating languages. And you can set the project name here, the authors here, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of all I wanted to say about it. I just wanted to say if you are a person who has a need for the ability to generate repeatably project scaffolds in Rust, I think that Cargo Generate is a great option. We can take a look at the usage and say you can use shorthands for GitHub repos. You can do fully qualified URLs like we did before. You can do things for GitLab and Bitbucket and so on. You can do multiple templates in a single repo. So if you want to store all of your templates in one repo, that is also supported. You can test locally, for example, and just generally everything that you would expect from a tool like this. So I'll leave it there. I'll assume that you're familiar with a templating language, even if it's not Liquid specifically, and encourage you to go look more into Cargo Generate if that is a tool that you need. If you feel like you need to project Scaffold Rust projects, I do. So I have a bunch of these sitting around in different places, and I try to keep them up to date for things like Netlify serverless functions and whatnot. So I hope you learned something today, and I will catch you in the next video.